It's not working because you're undisciplined. Introduction. The truth you already know. You don't need this book. You already know what to do. You know you should eat better, move more, save money, call your mother, finish that project, wake up earlier, stop scrolling at midnight. You've read the articles, you've watched the videos, you've bought the planners and downloaded the apps, you've had the epiphanies, made the promises, felt the surge of motivation after that podcast episode or that conversation with your successful friend. And yet, here you are. Not because you don't know enough, not because the universe is conspiring against you, not because you haven't found the right productivity hack or manifestation technique or morning routine. You're here because you're undisciplined. I know, that stings. You probably want to close this book right now. You want to tell me I don't understand your particular circumstances, your unique challenges, the very real obstacles in your path. And you're right, I don't know your specific situation. But I do know this. Whatever isn't working in your life right now, lack of discipline is somewhere in the equation. This isn't a book about motivation. Motivation is the lying friend who shows up with champagne and grand plans at midnight, then disappears when you actually need help moving apartments at 6 a.m. Motivation feels good. Motivation gets you started. But motivation is also the reason your garage is full of unused exercise equipment and your laptop has 17 half-finished projects. This is a book about discipline. Motivation's reliable, unsexy sibling who shows up every single day whether they feel like it or not. Here's what happened. Somewhere along the way, we got sold a beautiful lie. We were told that success comes from finding your passion, following your bliss, doing what you love. We were promised that the right goal, the right system, the right mindset would make everything flow effortlessly. We started believing that if something feels hard, we must be doing it wrong. So when discipline feels hard, because it always does, we assume we need a different approach, a better app, a new framework. We treat our lack of results as an information problem when it's actually an execution problem. You don't need more information. You need to do the things you already know you should do, repeatedly, especially when you don't feel like it. That's disciplined. That's it. That's the whole secret. The gap. There's a gap between who you are and who you want to be, between where you are and where you want to go, between what you know and what you do. That gap has a name: inconsistency. You worked out for 3 weeks, then stopped. You wrote every day for a month, then nothing for 6. You were great with money until that stressful week. You were kind and patient until you got tired. You showed up until it got boring, difficult, or inconvenient. This isn't about perfection. This is about the pattern of starting strong and fading, the pattern of good intentions and poor follow-through, the pattern of knowing better but not doing better. Why this book exists. I'm not here to coddle you or give you another comfortable framework that lets you stay exactly where you are while feeling like you're making progress. There are plenty of books for that. I'm here because you're tired of your own excuses. You're exhausted from the cycle of inspiration and disappointment. You're ready to hear something true, even if it's uncomfortable. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is your unwillingness to be disciplined enough to build it. Not your childhood, not your circumstances, not your personality type or your learning style or your astrological chart. You. And here's the beautiful, terrifying truth hidden in that realization. If you're the problem, you're also the solution. What this book won't do. This book won't make discipline easy. Nothing can do that. Discipline is hard by definition. If it were easy, it would just be called doing stuff you feel like doing. This book won't give you 47 hacks to trick yourself into productivity. You're smarter than that, and your brain knows when you're trying to manipulate it. This book won't promise you results in 21 days or 90 days or any specific time frame.
I don't know how long it will take you to build real discipline because I don't know how deep your current patterns run or how committed you actually are to changing them. What this book will do, this book will show you why you're undisciplined, not so you can feel bad about it, but so you can fix it. We'll look at the real reasons discipline fails: decision fatigue, unclear values, unrealistic expectations, lack of systems, and the dozen other ways you sabotage yourself. This book will give you a framework for building discipline that actually lasts. Not motivation, not willpower, real, sustainable discipline built on systems, not feelings. This book will teach you to respect yourself enough to keep the promises you make to yourself, because that's ultimately what discipline is: self-respect in action. A warning: if you're looking for permission to keep doing what you're doing, close this book now. If you want someone to validate your excuses or tell you that your lack of results isn't your fault, I'm not your person. But if you're ready to stop lying to yourself about why things aren't working, if you're willing to trade comfortable excuses for uncomfortable growth, if you're done being disappointed in yourself and ready to become someone you can actually respect, then keep listening.
Chapter 1. The Discipline Deficit. You're not broken, you're just inconsistent. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah wakes up at 5:30 a.m. on January 2nd. She's got her new workout clothes on, her motivational playlist queued up, and a green smoothie recipe saved on her phone. She's done her research, she's bought the supplements, she's told all her friends about her transformation. This time is different, she thinks. This time, she's really gonna do it. By February 15th, she's sleeping until 7 a.m. again. The workout clothes are in a pile on her bedroom floor. The blender hasn't been touched in 3 weeks. When her friends ask how it's going, she has a list of reasons ready. Work got crazy, she got sick, the gym was too crowded. She's thinking about trying a different approach that might work better for her body type. Now let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus has a business idea, a good one actually. He spent months researching, planning, designing. He's got spreadsheets and mock-ups and a detailed launch strategy. He's told himself that once he has everything perfect, once he's got all his ducks in a row, he'll execute. 6 months later, he's still preparing, still researching, still waiting for the right time, the right circumstances, the right feeling of readiness. He's added 2 more courses to his learning plan. Meanwhile, someone else launched a similar idea, messily, imperfectly, and is already getting customers and feedback and actually building something real. Here's what Sarah and Marcus have in common. They're both waiting for a version of themselves that doesn't exist. Sarah is waiting for the version of herself that wants to wake up at 5:30 a.m. Marcus is waiting for the version of himself that feels completely ready and confident. They're both operating under the same broken assumption that disciplined people have somehow cracked the code to make hard things feel easy. They haven't. The discipline myth. Let's destroy the biggest myth about discipline right now. Disciplined people don't feel like doing it either. Read that again. The person who goes to the gym 4 times a week, they don't want to go most of those times. The writer who publishes consistently, most days they'd rather do literally anything else. The person with the immaculate house, they don't enjoy cleaning more than you do. The difference, the only difference that matters, is that they do it anyway. Discipline isn't about transformation into some superhuman who loves hard things. It's about accepting that you're going to feel resistance and doing the thing despite that feeling. It's about building a self that keeps commitments even when, especially when, the enthusiasm has evaporated. You've been waiting to feel like it. That's why nothing's working. The consistency equation. Here's the brutal mathematics of achievement. Inconsistent effort with perfect knowledge equals minimal results. Consistent effort with imperfect knowledge equals massive results. You probably know 80% of what you need to know right now to achieve most of your goals. Want to lose weight? Eat less, move more, sleep enough, manage stress.
Want to build wealth? Spend less than you earn, invest the difference, be patient. Want better relationships? Show up, listen, be honest, do what you say you'll do. The information is simple, but simple isn't the same as easy. The person who goes to the gym inconsistently with a PhD-level understanding of exercise science will be outperformed by the person who shows up 4 days a week and does basic compound movements every single time. The person who reads every business book but never ships anything will be lapped by the person who launches mediocre products consistently and learns from real feedback. Knowledge is not your problem. Consistency is. The gap between knowing and doing. Let's do an uncomfortable exercise right now. Get honest with yourself. What's one thing you know you should do regularly that you're not doing? Got it? Good. Now answer these questions. Do you know how to do it? The answer is almost certainly yes. Do you know why it would benefit you? Again, yes. So why aren't you doing it? And here's where it gets interesting. Your answer to that last question is probably one of these. I don't have time. I'm too tired. I'll start when circumstances change. I tried before and it didn't work. I'm not a morning person or gym person or organized person. These aren't reasons, they're excuses. And before you get defensive, understand this. I'm not saying your constraints aren't real. I'm saying they're not the actual problem. The actual problem is that you've made the decision that this thing you say you want isn't worth being uncomfortable for. That's it. That's the whole diagnosis. The comfort trap. We've been conditioned to avoid discomfort at all costs. Our entire consumer economy is built on eliminating friction, reducing effort, making everything easier and more convenient. We can get anything delivered, we can automate everything, we can optimize our way out of almost any inconvenience. Except we can't optimize our way out of the requirement for discipline. Building anything worthwhile requires sustained discomfort. Your muscles don't grow without being broken down first. Your business doesn't scale without the growing pains of figuring out what doesn't work. Your relationships don't deepen without the vulnerability of difficult conversations. Your skills don't improve without the frustration of sucking at something before you're good at it. But you've been treating discomfort like a signal that something's wrong. It's not. Discomfort is the price of admission for anything worth having. And every time you choose comfort over commitment, you're choosing to stay exactly where you are. The identity problem. Here's something most people won't tell you. You might be more attached to your struggle than you are to your success. Stay with me here. Think about how much of your identity is wrapped up in your problems. How often do you say things like, I'm just not a morning person. I've always been disorganized. I'm terrible with money. I have no willpower. I'm naturally lazy.
Every time you say these things, you're not describing reality. You're creating it. You're giving yourself permission to continue the pattern because you've made it part of who you are. The undisciplined version of you is familiar, comfortable, known. And on some level, you might prefer the comfortable dissatisfaction of staying who you are over the uncomfortable uncertainty of becoming someone different. But here's the truth. You're not naturally anything except adaptable. You're not lazy. You're just someone who has consistently chosen rest over effort. You're not disorganized. You're someone who hasn't built organizational systems. You're not a morning person. You're someone with a nighttime routine that makes mornings difficult. Every single one of these identities is changeable. But first, you have to be willing to let go of the stories you've been telling yourself about who you are. The discipline deficit, a self-assessment. Let's get specific. Rate yourself honestly on these questions. 1 equals never, 10 equals always. How often do you do the things you commit to doing, even when you don't feel like it? Follow through on promises you make to yourself. Maintain habits for longer than a few weeks. Choose the harder right over the easier wrong. Do what needs to be done without needing external pressure. Start things you finish. Show up when it would be easier to make an excuse. If you scored below 7 on most of these, you have a discipline deficit. That's not a judgment, it's a diagnosis, and you can't fix a problem you won't acknowledge. The cost of undiscipline. Let's talk about what your lack of discipline has actually cost you, not in some abstract future sense, right now, today, in the life you're currently living. What opportunities have you missed because you didn't do the work consistently enough to be ready when they appeared? What relationships have suffered because you didn't show up the way you said you would? What version of your health, your finances, your career, your confidence have you sacrificed at the altar of "I'll do it tomorrow"? Add it up. Really look at it. That's not a scare tactic. That's a mirror. And the person looking back at you is capable of so much more than they've been willing to be disciplined enough to achieve. The good news. Here's the thing that might actually give you hope. Discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. You're not born disciplined or undisciplined. You learn it. You practice it. You build it the same way you build a muscle through consistent resistance training. And just like a muscle, discipline atrophies when you don't use it and strengthens when you do. Every small act of discipline makes the next one slightly easier. Every time you do the thing you said you'd do, especially when you don't feel like it, you're building evidence for yourself that you're the kind of person who follows through. You're literally rewiring your brain to make discipline the default instead of the exception. But, and this is crucial, none of that happens until you stop lying to yourself about why things aren't working. The pivot point. You're at a decision point right now. You can close this book and go back to the comfortable narratives you've been telling yourself. You can decide that your situation is special, that these principles don't apply to you, that you'll get serious about it later when circumstances are better. Or you can accept the uncomfortable truth. The main thing standing between you and the life you want is your unwillingness to be consistently disciplined in pursuit of it. Not sometimes disciplined, not disciplined when you feel motivated, not disciplined when it's convenient, consistently disciplined, regardless of how you feel, regardless of circumstances, regardless of whether anyone's watching or cheering you on. That's the standard. And I know it sounds harsh. It sounds like too much. It sounds like the kind of thing other people can do, but maybe not you. But here's what I know about you already. You picked up this book. Something in you recognized the title and thought, yes, that's it. You're still reading, which means part of you, maybe a small part, may be buried under years of disappointment and false starts. Part of you is ready to stop making excuses and start making changes. That part is right. The question is, are you willing to listen to it? In the next chapter, we're going to dismantle every excuse you've been using to justify your undiscipline. And fair warning, it's going to be uncomfortable. But if you can get through it honestly, you'll understand exactly what's been sabotaging you and how to stop. The truth is waiting. Are you? Chapter 2. Your excuses are lying to you. The excuse audit. Stop me if you've heard this one before. I would achieve goal, but I just don't have time right now. Once things settle down at work, once the kids are older, once I move, once this busy season is over, then I'll really focus on it. Or maybe this one. I'm just not wired that way. Some people are naturally disciplined, but that's not my personality type. I'm more creative, spontaneous, free-spirited. Or perhaps, I tried that before and it didn't work for me. My body, brain, or situation is different. Here's what all these statements have in common. They sound reasonable, they feel true, and they're absolutely lying to you. An excuse is a story we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of admitting what's really happening. We're choosing not to do the thing.
Excuses let us off the hook. They preserve our self-image as someone who would succeed if only circumstances were different. They protect us from having to face the gap between who we say we want to be and who we're actually choosing to be every day. But here's the problem. Every excuse you believe is a prison you've locked yourself inside. Let's break out.
Excuse number 1. I don't have time. This is the big one. The excuse so universally accepted that people rarely question it. You're busy. Your schedule is packed. There simply aren't enough hours in the day. Except that's not actually true. You have the same 168 hours per week as everyone else, the same amount of time as the single parent working 2 jobs who still manages to exercise, the same amount as the CEO who writes books, the same amount as your friend who seems to have it all together. The truth isn't that you don't have time. The truth is you haven't made it a priority. Let me prove it. Take out your phone right now. Check your screen time for last week. How many hours did you spend on social media, watching Netflix, playing games, scrolling mindlessly? I'm not judging those activities. Rest and entertainment are legitimate needs. But you can't claim you don't have 30 minutes for the gym while spending 2 hours a day on TikTok. You can't say you don't have time to cook healthy meals while binging entire seasons in a weekend. You can't claim no time for your business while knowing exactly what's happening in everyone else's life on Instagram. You have time. You're just spending it on other things. And again, that's fine, but call it what it is. Don't say, I don't have time. Say, it's not enough of a priority for me to make time, because that's honest. And honesty is where change begins. The calendar test. Here's an exercise that will make you uncomfortable. For the next week, track every hour of your day. Write down what you actually do, not what you wish you did or what you plan to do. Everything. Work, commute, meals, TV, scrolling, actual productive activity, everything. At the end of the week, highlight the time you spent on your stated priorities, the goals you claim are important to you. Now look at what's left. All that unhighlighted time, that's where your real priorities are. That's what you're actually choosing. The person who says fitness is important but spends 0 hours at the gym and 7 hours watching TV has revealed their actual priorities. The aspiring entrepreneur who spends 15 hours on Twitter and 0 hours building their business has told you what they actually value. Your calendar is a mirror. It shows you who you really are, not who you pretend to be. Excuse number 2. I'm just not that kind of person. This might be the most insidious excuse because it masquerades as self-awareness. I'm not a morning person. I'm not naturally organized. I'm not the type who goes to the gym. I'm just more of a night owl, creative type, or go-with-the-flow person. Here's what you're really saying. I've done this thing, or not done it, consistently enough that it's become my identity, and I'm unwilling to challenge that identity because changing would require admitting I've been choosing this all along. You're not a morning person. You're a person who stays up late and made waking up early unnecessarily difficult. I guarantee if your house was on fire at 5 a.m., you'd be alert and functional immediately. The capability is there. You're just not using it. You're not organized. You're someone who hasn't built organizational systems or hasn't valued organization enough to maintain them. You're not a gym person. You're someone who hasn't gone to the gym enough times to become comfortable there. These aren't personality traits. They're habits, and habits can change. The identity trap. Every time you declare, I'm just not X, you're doing 2 things. First, you're giving yourself permission to never become X. You've made it part of your core identity, so changing would feel like losing yourself. And second, you're overlooking the thousands of micro-choices that created this identity in the first place. You didn't emerge from the womb as not a morning person. You became one through years of specific sleep and wake patterns.
which means you can become something else through different patterns. The most disciplined person you know wasn't born that way. They made different choices consistently until those choices became their identity. You can do the same thing. But first, you have to stop hiding behind who you've been and start building who you want to become. Excuse number 3. I'm too tired. This one's tricky because sometimes it's legitimate. Real exhaustion is real. But most of the time, you're not too tired to do the thing. You're too tired to do the thing and waste 3 hours scrolling afterward. You're too tired to work out and watch TV. You're too tired to cook and stay up until midnight. Funny how the tiredness disappears for things you actually want to do. Notice how you're too tired to go to the gym, but not too tired to meet friends for drinks. Too tired to work on your side business, but not too tired for a Netflix binge. Too tired to meal prep, but somehow have energy to scroll through food videos. The issue isn't energy, it's priority and habit. Here's the truth about energy. It's not a finite resource you start each day with and deplete. It's dynamic. It responds to what you do. Exercise gives you more energy. Eating well gives you more energy. Accomplishing things gives you more energy. Scrolling mindlessly drains your energy. Making excuses drains your energy. Disappointing yourself drains your energy. You're tired because you're undisciplined, not the other way around.
The energy paradox. The things you're too tired to do are often the exact things that would give you more energy. You're too tired to exercise, but exercise increases energy and improves sleep quality. You're too tired to cook, but eating well stabilizes blood sugar and energy levels. You're too tired to work on meaningful projects, but accomplishment creates motivation and vitality. You're caught in a cycle where being undisciplined makes you tired, and being tired becomes your excuse for continued undiscipline. The only way out is through. You have to do the thing you're too tired for, consistently, until your energy levels actually improve. Yes, it will be hard at first. That's the price of admission. Excuse number 4. I'll start on Monday, January 1st, or when things settle down. This is really 3 excuses pretending to be planning. I'll start on Monday equals I want to enjoy being undisciplined for a few more days without the guilt of knowing I should be doing better right now. I'll start January 1st equals I want the emotional satisfaction of having a plan without the discomfort of executing it. When things settle down equals I'm waiting for a mythical future where change is easy and doesn't require sacrifice. Here's what you need to understand. Things will never settle down. There will never be a perfect time. There will always be stress, obligations, challenges, and reasons to wait. Waiting for the right moment is just another way of choosing not to start. The fresh start fallacy. We love the idea of fresh starts. New week, new month, new year, new you. It feels clean, organized, like we're taking it seriously by having an official start date. But here's the problem. When you make Tuesday through Sunday the last hurrah before your Monday start date, what are you actually doing? You're binging on the exact behaviors you claim you want to change. You're reinforcing the patterns you're supposedly about to break. Then Monday comes, and you're starting from a place of being overfed, under-rested, out of practice, and carrying the psychological weight of whatever you did in your last hurrah. You've made it harder, not easier. If something is actually important to you, you start now, today, this moment, not perfectly, not with ideal circumstances, just start. The person who starts a mediocre workout today will be ahead of the person who plans a perfect routine to start next Monday every single time. Excuse number 5. I tried that before and it didn't work. Let's be specific about what actually happened. You tried that before, didn't stick with it long enough to see results, stopped doing it, and are now using that brief attempt as evidence that the approach doesn't work. I ate healthy but I didn't lose weight equals
I ate healthy for 2 weeks, didn't see immediate dramatic results, went back to old patterns. I tried waking up early, but it didn't work for me. Equals, I set an alarm for 5 a.m. while still going to bed at midnight, felt terrible, and gave up. I tried that business idea, but there was no market for it. Equals, I posted about it twice on social media, got no immediate traction, and abandoned it. You didn't fail, you quit before the thing had a chance to work. The patience problem. We live in an instant gratification world. We can get almost anything delivered in hours. We can message anyone, anywhere, instantly. We can access any information in seconds. So when we start something that requires weeks or months to show results, our brains interpret the lack of immediate feedback as failure. But real results take time. Real change happens in increments so small you can't see them day to day. The person losing weight doesn't see it in the mirror for weeks, but their body is changing at the cellular level from day one. The business that looks like an overnight success had years of invisible groundwork. You tried it before and quit right before it would have started working, and now you're using that as evidence that trying again would be pointless. Can you see how perfectly that excuse protects you from ever having to be uncomfortable long enough to actually change? Excuse number 6, my situation is different or more complicated. Yes, it is. Everyone's situation is unique. You have specific challenges, constraints, responsibilities, and circumstances that no one else has in exactly the same combination. And none of that changes the fundamental equation. Disciplined effort over time produces results. Your situation being complicated doesn't exempt you from reality. It just means you have to be more creative about how you apply discipline. Single parent working 2 jobs, that's objectively harder than someone with free time and resources. But there are single parents working 2 jobs who still find ways to exercise, eat well, and pursue goals. Not because their situation is easier, but because they've decided their constraints are problems to solve, not excuses to accept. Chronic illness or disability absolutely changes what's possible and how hard things are. But there are people with severe health challenges who accomplish remarkable things by working within their real limitations while refusing to use those limitations as a blanket excuse for undiscipline in areas they can control. Your situation affects the difficulty level. It doesn't change the requirement for consistency. The comparison trap. Reversed. Usually, we talk about how comparison to others makes us feel inadequate. But there's another side, using others' advantages as an excuse for our own lack of effort. Easy for them, they don't have kids. Of course they can focus on fitness, they can afford a trainer. They have time because they don't work as hard as I do. Maybe all that's true, and what does it change about what you need to do today? Nothing. Their advantages don't prevent your progress. Your focus on their advantages prevents your progress.
The universal excuse. Here's what all these excuses have in common. They let you keep your self-image intact while continuing behaviors that don't align with your stated goals. You get to think of yourself as someone who would be successful, fit, organized, accomplished, if only circumstances were different. You maintain the comfortable identity of being someone who values these things without the uncomfortable reality of having to actually do them. Your excuses are a comfort blanket you wrap yourself in to avoid feeling the cold wind of personal responsibility. The excuse-free zone. Imagine, just for a moment, living without excuses for a single week. Something doesn't get done? You don't blame time, energy, circumstances, or other people. You just acknowledge, I chose not to do that. You skip the gym? Not because you were tired or busy, just, I chose not to go. You eat poorly? Not because healthy food is expensive or you were stressed, just, I chose to eat this. How would that week feel? Probably uncomfortable, maybe even brutal. But here's what else it would be. Honest. And from honesty comes power. Because when you stop blaming circumstances, you start seeing choices. and choices can be changed. You can't control how much time you have, but you can control how you spend it. You can't control your natural inclinations, but you can control whether you let them dictate your actions. You can't control your energy levels, but you can control whether you waste what you have. You can't control your circumstances, but you can control your response to them. The excuse inventory. Let's get practical. Take out a piece of paper, write down the main goal you've been failing to make progress on. Now, write down every excuse you've used for why you haven't achieved it. All of them. Be brutally honest. Include the ones that sound legitimate. Now go through each excuse and rewrite it as a choice. I don't have time becomes I'm choosing to spend my time on other things. I'm not a morning person becomes I'm choosing to maintain sleep patterns that make mornings difficult. I'm too tired becomes I'm choosing rest/entertainment over this goal. I tried before and it didn't work becomes I chose to quit before seeing results. How does that feel? Probably terrible. Good. That discomfort is your ego realizing it can't hide anymore. The hard truth. Your excuses have been protecting you from something scarier than failure, the responsibility of trying. Because if you try, really try, consistently without excuses, and still fail, then what? Then you can't blame circumstances. Then you have to face the possibility that you need to grow, learn, get help, change approach, work harder, or accept that this particular goal might not be as important to you as you thought. But if you never really try, if you always have an excuse ready, you never have to face those possibilities. You can stay in the comfortable space of potential without the risk of reality. Your excuses are keeping you safe, and safety is keeping you stuck. The next chapter is going to hurt even more because we're going to talk about what you're actually afraid of. But if you've made it this far, if you've been honest enough with yourself to see your excuses for what they are, you're ready. The question isn't whether you can do this. The question is whether you're willing to stop lying to yourself about why you haven't.
Chapter 3. What you're really afraid of. The fear beneath the excuses. Let's talk about what you're actually running from. Because here's the thing nobody wants to admit. Undisciplined isn't just laziness or poor time management or bad habits. Those are symptoms. The disease is fear. You're not scrolling for 3 hours because you're tired. You're scrolling because you're avoiding something. You're not skipping the gym because you don't have time. You're skipping it because some part of you is afraid of what showing up consistently would mean. You're not procrastinating on your goals because you lack motivation. You're procrastinating because starting would make you vulnerable to something you've been working very hard not to feel. Undisciplined is a protection mechanism. And until you understand what it's protecting you from, you'll keep sabotaging yourself no matter how many systems you build or how motivated you get. This chapter is going to be uncomfortable. We're going past the surface-level excuses into the deep stuff, the fears you don't even admit to yourself. But if you can face these fears, name them, and strip them of their power, you'll understand why discipline has been so hard, and more importantly, you'll know how to overcome it. Fear number 1. The fear of discovering you're not special. Here's a question that might sting. What if you try your absolute hardest, give your full disciplined effort over an extended period, and you're still average? This is the secret terror underneath a lot of undiscipline. As long as you don't really try, you can maintain the fantasy that you could be great if you want it to be. You can tell yourself you're a talented writer who just hasn't gotten around to writing consistently. You can believe you'd have an amazing body if you just applied yourself. You can maintain the identity of someone with huge potential who's just been held back by circumstances or timing or lack of focus. But if you actually commit, if you show up every day, do the work,
Maintain discipline for months or years and then discover you're decent, competent, but not special? That's terrifying. So you don't commit. You stay in potential. You keep the fantasy alive by never testing it against reality. The potential trap. Potential is the most seductive prison because it feels like freedom. It feels like having options. It feels like being someone who could do anything if only you chose to focus. But potential without action is just daydreaming, and the longer you live there, the harder it becomes to leave. Because with every passing year, every missed opportunity, every abandoned start, the gap grows between who you could have been and who you actually are. And that gap, that's not motivating, that's terrifying. Here's what you need to understand. Being good at something you've worked hard at is infinitely more valuable than being potentially great at something you've never done. The person who writes mediocre novels but finishes them is a writer. You, with all your potential and no finished pages, are not. The person with a normal-looking body who shows up at the gym consistently has achieved something real. You, who could definitely get in great shape if you really tried, have achieved nothing. Potential is not an accomplishment, it's an excuse. Fear number 2, the fear of success. Wait, what? Fear of success? Isn't success what we want? On the surface, yes, but success comes with requirements that terrify us. Success requires maintenance. If you lose the weight, you have to keep it off. If you build the business, you have to run it. If you become disciplined, you have to stay disciplined. Success isn't a finish line you cross and then relax. It's a new baseline you have to maintain. And some part of you knows that's exhausting. Success changes how people see you. Right now, you might get sympathy for your struggles, understanding for your circumstances, low expectations that you can easily exceed by doing the bare minimum. But if you succeed, now you're expected to keep succeeding. Now you've lost your excuses. Now people are watching to see if you'll maintain it. That pressure feels crushing. Success requires you to become someone different. The disciplined version of you that achieves your goals isn't just the current you with better results. It's a person with different habits, different priorities, different ways of spending time and making decisions. And becoming someone new means letting go of who you are now. Even if you don't like who you are now, at least it's familiar. Success might reveal that the goal wasn't what you actually wanted. What if you get the body, the business, the accomplishment, and you're still not happy? What if you discover that the thing you blamed for all your dissatisfaction wasn't actually the problem? What if you succeed and still feel empty? Better not to find out. The high school quarterback syndrome. You know that guy who peaked in high school, who can't stop talking about the glory days, who never did anything after because nothing could match that one period of success? Part of you is afraid of becoming that person. You're afraid that if you achieve your goal, that will be the best thing you ever do, that you'll spend the rest of your life looking backward at your one accomplishment. So you don't achieve it. You keep it in front of you, always out of reach, always something you're working toward, because working towards something feels safer than having achieved it and needing to figure out what's next. But here's what that fear ignores. Discipline compounds. The person who builds the discipline to achieve one goal now has the capability to achieve others. Success doesn't trap you, it frees you. It proves to yourself that you can do hard things. That evidence becomes the foundation for attempting harder things. The real trap is staying where you are.
Fear number 3, the fear of judgment. This one's big. You're afraid of what people will think when you start, when you show up at the gym out of shape, when you post about your business before it's successful, when you try something new and you're obviously a beginner. You're afraid of looking stupid, try-hard, naive, overly ambitious, like you don't know your place. So you don't start. Or you start quietly, secretly, in ways that don't require you to be visible while you're still imperfect. But here's the cruel irony. The fear of judgment keeps you in exactly the position that you actually should feel embarrassed about: doing nothing. The spotlight effect. You think everyone is watching you, judging your every move, waiting for you to fail so they can mock you. The reality? Most people are so consumed with their own lives, their own fears, their own struggles, that they barely notice what you're doing. And the ones who do notice and judge, they're usually doing it from the exact same place of insecurity you're operating from. The person who mocks someone for trying is usually someone who's afraid to try themselves. Your effort holds up a mirror to their inaction, and they don't like what they see. Think about it this way. When was the last time you saw someone trying something difficult, clearly struggling, obviously imperfect, and thought less of them for it? Probably never. You probably respected the effort. But when did you last see someone making excuses, hiding behind potential, talking big but never doing anything? How did you feel about that? The judgment you're afraid of receiving for trying is nothing compared to the judgment you actually deserve for not trying. Fear number 4, the fear of losing your comfort zone. Your current life, even if you don't love it, has one crucial advantage: you know how to navigate it. You know how to be the person you are now. You know what to expect. You know your routines, your habits, your ways of coping with stress. You know what your days look like. You know your role in your relationships. Discipline would disrupt all of that. If you start waking up at 5 a.m., your entire daily rhythm changes. If you start eating differently, your social situations become complicated. If you start working on your business, you have less time for the mindless relaxation you've been using to decompress. If you become more disciplined, people who know you might be confused, skeptical, or even resentful of the change. Change is chaos, and your brain is designed to avoid chaos, even when your current order is killing you slowly. The comfort-misery paradox. You can be simultaneously miserable in your current situation and terrified to leave it. In fact, that's the most common human condition. The overweight person is unhappy with their body, but terrified of the social disruption of changing eating habits. The person in the dead-end job is bored and unfulfilled, but terrified of the uncertainty of starting something new. The person in the mediocre relationship is lonely, but terrified of being alone. Misery is tolerable if it's familiar. It's the unfamiliar that terrifies us. So you stay. You complain about where you are while simultaneously sabotaging every attempt to leave, because at least you know how to be miserable here. You don't know how to navigate the territory of change. Fear number 5, the fear of having no excuses left. This might be the deepest fear of all. Right now, you can explain away everything that's not working in your life. You have reasons. Some of them might even be good reasons. Your circumstances, your history, your resources, your obligations, they all provide a coherent narrative for why you are where you are. But if you became disciplined, if you removed all the self-imposed obstacles and things still didn't work out, then what would you blame? If you give it everything and still fail, you can't hide behind "I didn't really try." You can't comfort yourself with "I could have done it if I'd actually committed." You'd have to face the possibility that you tried your hardest and it wasn't enough. That's existentially terrifying. So you keep one hand on the ejection seat. You maintain escape routes. You never fully commit, because full commitment means full responsibility. And full responsibility means if it doesn't work, you have no one and nothing to blame but yourself. The vulnerability of effort. Trying hard is vulnerable. Caring is vulnerable. Committing is vulnerable. Not caring, being cynical, half-assing things so you can say, "I wasn't even trying," that's safe. That's armor. But armored is heavy, and eventually protecting yourself from the vulnerability of effort becomes more exhausting than the effort itself would have been. The person who gives 100% and fails can respect themselves.
The person who gives 50% and fails has to live with the knowledge that they didn't even try. That's a special kind of hell. Failing while knowing you guaranteed the failure by not committing. You're trying to protect yourself from the pain of real failure by ensuring you experience the pain of self-sabotage instead. How's that working out for you? Fear number 6, the fear of responsibility. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Being disciplined lets you stay a victim. When you're undisciplined, when you're not in control of your choices and habits and outcomes, you can maintain the narrative that life is happening to you. Things are hard, circumstances are against you, you're doing your best but the world isn't cooperating. But when you become disciplined, you lose that story. Discipline means accepting that your life is primarily the result of your choices, that where you are is largely where you've put yourself, that changes in outcomes require changes in inputs. That's a massive psychological shift. It means you can't blame your boss for your career stagnation if you're not developing new skills. You can't blame your genetics for your health if you're not exercising or eating well. You can't blame the economy for your financial situation if you're not controlling spending or developing income streams. It means accepting that you have far more control than you've been admitting, which also means accepting far more responsibility than you've been willing to carry.
The agency paradox. Here's the paradox. Accepting responsibility feels restrictive, but it's actually what sets you free. When your outcomes are due to circumstances beyond your control, you're powerless. You're a leaf in the wind, subject to forces you can't influence. But when your outcomes are due to your choices, now you have agency. Now you can change things. The price is giving up the comfort of victimhood. The reward is the power to actually build the life you want. Most people don't want that trade. They'd rather be blameless than powerful. Fear number 7, the fear of loneliness. Discipline is isolating. When everyone's staying up late scrolling and you're going to bed at 10 p.m. to wake up at 5 a.m., you're alone. When everyone's ordering takeout and you're meal prepping, you're alone. When everyone's talking about the latest shows and you're working on your business, you're alone. When everyone's complaining about their circumstances and you're taking responsibility for changing yours, you're alone. Discipline often means choosing differently than the people around you, and choosing differently means separation. You might lose friends who don't understand your new priorities. You might face resentment from people who feel judged by your changes, even though you're not judging them. You might discover that your relationships were built on shared dysfunction, and when you get healthy, there's nothing left. That's terrifying. Humans are social creatures. Isolation feels like death. So you stay connected by staying the same, even when staying the same is keeping you stuck. The crab bucket. You know what happens when you put crabs in a bucket? When one tries to climb out, the others pull it back down. Your social circle can be a crab bucket, not necessarily because people are malicious, but because your change threatens their comfort. Your discipline highlights their lack of it. Your growth demands they either grow too or accept that they're choosing not to. Most people choose the third option, pulling you back down. And if you're not prepared for that, if you're not willing to be temporarily lonely in pursuit of becoming someone better, you'll let them do it. You'll sabotage yourself to maintain belonging. But here's what you need to know. The loneliness of discipline is temporary. The loneliness of regret is permanent. The root fear. The fear of finding out who you really are. All these fears of mediocrity, of success, of judgment, of discomfort, of having no excuses, of responsibility, of loneliness, they all branch from one central terror. What if you do this, really do this, and discover that the person you become isn't who you hoped you were? What if the disciplined version of you is still anxious, still insecure, still unfulfilled?
What if all this work reveals that your problems weren't about discipline at all, but about something deeper you don't want to face? So you don't do the work. You don't become disciplined. You keep the mystery alive. You protect yourself from the truth by never creating conditions where the truth would be revealed. You stay in the liminal space between who you are and who you could be, because as long as you're in that space, you can tell yourself any story you want about who you'd be, if only. Breaking through fear. Here's what you need to understand about all of these fears. They're going to be there whether you act or not. The fear of mediocrity? It's there right now. You're already living with the possibility that you're not special. The difference is whether you're mediocre because you tried and reached your limit, or mediocre because you never tried at all. The fear of success? You're already dealing with the pressure of expectations of who you should be that you're not living up to. Discipline doesn't add pressure, it gives you the tools to handle it. The fear of judgment? People are already judging you for being undisciplined, for making excuses, for wasted potential. The question is whether you're judged as someone who tried or someone who didn't. Every fear you're using to justify inaction is a fear you're already living with. Discipline doesn't create these fears, it gives you a way through them. The courage equation. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of fear. You think you need to overcome these fears before you can become disciplined. That's backward. You become disciplined despite these fears, and in doing so, you prove to yourself that the fears weren't prophetic, they were just noise. Every time you do the thing you're afraid to do, the fear loses power. Every time you show up despite the discomfort, you build evidence that you can handle discomfort. Every time you choose discipline over the temporary relief of undiscipline, you become someone who makes that choice. The fears don't go away. You just get stronger than they are. The question you've been avoiding. Let me ask you directly, which fear is really running your life right now? Not the surface excuse, not the time management issue or the energy problem or the circumstance explanation. Which of these deep fears has convinced you that staying undisciplined is safer than becoming disciplined? Is it the fear that you'll try your hardest and still be average? Is it the fear that success will trap you in a life of maintenance and expectations? Is it the fear of being seen and judged while you're imperfect? Is it the fear of leaving your comfortable misery for uncomfortable growth? Is it the fear of running out of excuses and having to face yourself honestly? Is it the fear of accepting full responsibility for your life? Is it the fear of losing your current relationships and community? Is it the fear of discovering who you really are underneath all the potential? Name it. Say it out loud. Write it down. Because an unnamed fear is an unkillable fear. But once you name it, once you drag it into the light and look at it directly, it becomes manageable. It's still scary, but it's no longer in control. The choice point. You're standing at a fork in the road, and you've been standing here for a while. One path is familiar. It's the path of staying as you are, maintaining your excuses, living with your fears unnamed and unconfronted. It's comfortable in the way a too small shoe is comfortable, painful, but in a way you're used to. The other path is discipline. It requires you to face every fear in this chapter. It offers no guarantee of extraordinary success, no promise that you'll become special, no assurance that people will understand or support you. It will be uncomfortable, vulnerable, and lonely at times. But it offers one thing the other path doesn't: self-respect. The disciplined path, even if you fail, even if you're average, even if it's hard, gives you the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and know you tried, really tried, gave it everything you had, faced your fears, and did the work anyway. The undisciplined path denies you that forever. You can make all the excuses you want, but you'll always know the truth. You were afraid, and you let that fear make your choices.
The final fear. There's one more fear we haven't talked about, the fear that might be the biggest of all. The fear that this is it, that if you don't change now, you never will. That you'll be having this same conversation with yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That you'll become one of those people who had potential once, who could have done something, who just never got around to it. That fear, that one's not irrational. That one's a warning. Because time doesn't stop. Every day you spend managing your fears instead of facing them is a day you don't get back. And at some point, someday becomes never. You're afraid of trying and failing, but you should be more afraid of not trying and wondering. The next chapter is where we stop talking about what's wrong and start building what's right. We're going to construct the foundation of sustainable discipline, not motivation, not willpower, but actual systems that work regardless of how you feel. But you can't build that foundation on top of unexamined fears. So before you turn the page, take a moment. Sit with what this chapter brought up. Face it, name it, feel it. Then decide, are you going to let it win, or are you finally ready to fight? Chapter 4. The Architecture of Discipline. Building on bedrock, not sand. You've faced your excuses. You've named your fears. You know why you've been stuck. Now comes the hard part, actually changing. And here's where most people fail, even after moments of clarity and determination. They try to build discipline on willpower and motivation, which is like building a skyscraper on sand. It works for a few days, maybe a few weeks when conditions are perfect. Then the first storm hits and everything collapses. You've been through this cycle before. The burst of motivation, the ambitious plans, the initial momentum, then the inevitable fade as willpower depletes and motivation evaporates. Back to square one with an extra layer of disappointment and self-doubt. This time, we're building differently. We're not relying on your feelings. We're not depending on motivation. We're not trusting willpower to carry you through. Instead, we're going to construct systems, external scaffolding that holds you up, even when your internal state is a mess. Because here's the truth. Discipline isn't about feeling like doing it. It's about doing it regardless of how you feel. And that requires architecture, not inspiration. The 3 pillars of sustainable discipline. Real discipline, the kind that lasts months and years, not days and weeks, rests on 3 foundational pillars. 1. Clarity, knowing exactly what you're doing and why. 2. Structure, building systems that make the right choice the easy choice. 3. Accountability, creating external pressure when internal motivation fails. Miss any one of these and your discipline will crumble. You need all 3, working together, supporting each other. Let's build them. Pillar 1. Clarity. The fog problem. Most people's goals are fog, vague, shapeless, constantly shifting. Get in shape, be more productive, build a business, be better with money. You can't be disciplined toward fog. You can't measure progress toward get in shape. You can't know if you're succeeding or failing with be more productive. Vague goals produce vague effort, which produces vague results. The first requirement of discipline is crystal clarity about 3 things. What exactly are you doing? Why exactly are you doing it? How exactly will you know if it's working? The what. Specific, measurable, bounded. Here's how you transform fog into clarity. Bad goal, get in shape. Clear goal, work out for 45 minutes, 4 days a week, following a structured program for the next 12 weeks. Bad goal, write more. Clear goal, write 500 words every day before 9 a.m. for the next 90 days. Bad goal, improve my finances. Clear goal, save $500 per month by tracking every expense and cutting discretionary spending by 30% for the next 6 months. See the difference? The clear goals have specificity, exactly what you're doing. Measurability, you can track whether you did it or not. Time boundaries, a defined period, not forever. You can be disciplined toward 500 before 9 a.m. You cannot be disciplined toward write more. The why, your actual reason, not the one you think you should have. This is where people bullshit themselves. They say they want to get in shape for health, when really they want to look good and feel confident. They say they want to build a business for freedom, when really they're running from feelings of inadequacy. Your stated reason and your actual reason don't have to match, but you need to know what the actual reason is. Because when discipline gets hard, and it will, your stated reason won't sustain you. For health won't get you to the gym on a dark winter morning when you're tired, but because I'm tired of being ashamed of how I look, might. For success won't keep you working when everything feels pointless, but to prove to myself I'm not a quitter, might. I'm not saying your reasons have to be noble, they just have to be true. True reasons have power. Socially accepted lies don't. Exercise. Write down your goal. Now write "the real reason I want this is," and finish that sentence without editing yourself. That's your why. Protect it. Return to it when motivation fails. The how. Define success before you start. You need to know before you begin what success looks like, not the ultimate dream outcome, but the minimum viable success that counts as keeping the commitment. For the gym, success is walking through the door and doing the workout, even if it's not your best performance. For writing, success is 500 words on the page, even if they're terrible. For saving money, success is putting 500 in savings, even if you wanted to save more. Define the floor, not just the ceiling. Because on hard days, you need to know what's the absolute minimum that counts as not breaking the chain. What's the smallest version of this commitment that still honors it? When you know that, you can't lie to yourself. You either did it or you didn't. And that clarity eliminates the negotiation that kills discipline.
Pillar 2. Structure. Willpower is a terrible strategy. Willpower is a finite resource. It depletes throughout the day. It's weakest when you're tired, stressed, or hungry. Relying on willpower means relying on your ability to make the hard choice in the moment, repeatedly, forever. That's a losing strategy. Disciplined people aren't more disciplined because they have more willpower. They're more disciplined because they structured their lives so they need less willpower. They've made the right choice the default choice. They've removed the decision points. They've built systems that carry them forward even when their internal state is weak. The 2 types of structure. 1. Removal structure. Eliminate the wrong choice. The most powerful form of discipline is making the undisciplined option unavailable. Want to stop wasting time on your phone in the morning? Put it in another room overnight. You can't scroll if you have to get out of bed and walk to another room first, and by then you're already up. Want to eat better? Don't buy junk food. Can't eat what isn't there. I'll just have one requires willpower. There is none in the house requires none. Want to save money? Set up automatic transfers to savings the day your paycheck hits. You can't spend what you don't see in your checking account. Adding structure, make the right choice automatic. When you can't remove the wrong choice, make the right choice so easy that it's the path of least resistance. Want to work out in the morning? Sleep in your workout clothes. Put your shoes by the bed. Have your gym bag packed and ready. Want to write every morning? Have your document open on your computer before you go to bed, so when you sit down, you're one click away from writing. Want to eat healthy? Meal prep on Sunday. When you're tired after work, the healthy food is just as easy as takeout. It's already made. The principle: reduce the activation energy required to do the right thing. Increase the friction for doing the wrong thing. The key is that you have to actually tell someone, "I did it," or "I didn't do it." No vagueness, no spinning, just the facts. Level 3. Financial stakes. Put money on the line, real money, enough that losing it would genuinely bother you. Use an app like BeMinder or StickK, where you lose money if you don't meet your commitment. Or make a bet with a friend where you pay them if you miss your target. Money makes it real in a way that nothing else does. You can talk yourself out of disappointing yourself. You can't talk yourself out of losing $50. Level 4. Partnership. Find someone with a similar goal and become accountability partners. You both commit to the same structure, report to each other, and hold each other to the standard. This is powerful because now you're not just letting yourself down, you're letting someone else down. And most people will do more to avoid disappointing others than they will to avoid disappointing themselves. Level 5. Professional accountability. Hire a coach, trainer, or mentor, someone whose job is to hold you accountable and who you're paying specifically for that function. This is the nuclear option, but it works because you've created a financial relationship where the other person has no incentive to let you slack. Their value to you is based on your results. The non-negotiable rule. Here's the structure that changes everything. Create one non-negotiable rule for yourself, make it public, and attach a significant consequence to breaking it. Not 10 rules, not 5, 1. The keystone behavior that, if you do it consistently, will create the foundation for everything else. For some people, it's, "I work out 4 times per week, no exceptions, no excuses." For others, it's, "I write 500 words every morning before doing anything else." For others, it's, "I track every expense every single day." Make it specific, make it measurable, make it something you can't rationalize your way out of. Then tell everyone, and attach a real consequence, preferably financial, to breaking it. Why this works? 1 rule is defensible. 10 rules fall apart when life gets messy, but 1 rule, you can protect 1 rule. You can build a fortress around 1 commitment. And when you prove to yourself that you can keep 1 non-negotiable commitment for weeks, then months, you build the evidence that you're someone who does what they say they'll do. That identity shift is the foundation for all other discipline. Building your system, the 7-day architecture sprint. Theory is worthless without application, so let's build your actual system right now. You're going to spend the next 7 days creating the architecture of discipline for 1 goal. Not your whole life, not every goal, 1 goal, the one that matters most right now. Day 1, ruthless clarity. Task, define your commitment with absolute specificity. Write down exactly what you'll do, the specific action, exactly when you'll do it, days and times, exactly how you'll measure it, what counts as success, exactly how long this commitment lasts, minimum 30 days, ideally 90, your real reason why, not the noble one, the true one. Day 2, structure removal. Task, eliminate environmental obstacles and temptations. Identify every environmental factor that makes the wrong choice easier than the right choice. Remove them. All of them. Delete apps, clear out food, rearrange your space, remove whatever makes failure more convenient than success. This will feel extreme, good. Extreme works. Day 3. Structure addition. Task. Make the right choice automatic. Set up everything you need to make your commitment as friction-free as possible. Prepare your environment. Schedule your time. Eliminate decision points. If you're working out, have your clothes ready and your route planned. If you're writing, have your document open and your coffee ready. If you're studying, have your materials organized and your space prepared. Day 4. Pre-decisions. Task. Eliminate in-the-moment choices. Decide right now how you'll handle the common obstacles. What if I'm tired? What if I'm sick? What if I'm traveling? What if unexpected things come up? Don't leave these as game time decisions. Decide now while you're clear-headed what the rule is for each scenario. Day 5. Public commitment. Task. Make it impossible to quietly quit. Tell at least 3 people about your specific commitment. Post it publicly if you're comfortable. The more witnesses, the better. Send them the exact details, what you're doing, when, for how long, and how they can check in on you. Day 6. Accountability system. Task. Build your safety net. Choose at least 2 levels from the accountability hierarchy and set them up. Who will you report to and how often? What financial stakes will you create? What consequence happens if you break the commitment? Make it real. Make it meaningful. Make it something you can't casually dismiss. Day 7. Emergency protocols. Task. Plan for resistance. You will not want to do this. There will be days when every cell in your body is screaming to quit. Plan for that now.
Write down what you'll do when you don't want to do it, your minimum viable version. Who you'll call when you're ready to give up. What you'll read or review to remember why you started. Your non-negotiation script, the exact words you'll say to yourself when you're tempted to make excuses. The first 14 days, the hardest part. Here's what no one tells you. The first 2 weeks are supposed to be hell. Not because you're doing it wrong, not because this isn't for you, but because you're breaking a pattern your brain has spent years establishing. Your brain hates that. It will fight you with everything it has. You'll experience intense resistance and dread before doing the thing. A feeling that this is taking way more effort than it should. Constant thoughts about quitting or modifying the commitment. Elaborate justifications for why your situation is special. Physical and emotional discomfort that seems disproportionate. This is normal. This is your brain trying to pull you back to homeostasis. The only way through is through. You cannot negotiate with this feeling. You cannot make it comfortable. You can only prove to your brain, through repeated action, that the new pattern is the new normal. After 14 days of consistency, real consistency, no breaks, it starts to shift. Not because it becomes easy, but because your brain begins to accept that this is what we do now. Your only job in the first 14 days is to not break the chain. Perfect execution is secondary to perfect consistency. The maintenance mindset. Here's what happens after you've built discipline around one commitment. You'll be tempted to immediately pile on more. This is working. Let me add 5 more goals. Don't. Discipline is like muscle. You build it gradually, adding weight as you get stronger. If you try to lift everything at once, you'll collapse. Stay with your one non-negotiable commitment until it's truly automatic, usually 90 days minimum. Until you can do it without thinking about it, without negotiating with yourself, without requiring conscious effort. Then and only then add another one. Build the next pillar of discipline on the foundation of the first. This is how you become a disciplined person, one defended commitment at a time. What success actually looks like. You'll know the architecture is working when you do the thing even on days you absolutely don't want to. You no longer have an internal debate about whether to do it, you just do it.
Missing the commitment feels wrong, like forgetting to brush your teeth. You've done it consistently for long enough that you can see actual results. People start noticing and commenting on the change. But here's what success doesn't look like. It doesn't look like being happy about it every day. It doesn't look like effortless ease. It doesn't look like never struggling or never wanting to quit. Success looks like doing it anyway, every single time, regardless of circumstances or feelings or obstacles. That's discipline, not feeling like it and doing it anyway, forever. The reality check. Building this architecture is work, real, difficult, unglamorous work. You have to think through your systems, set up your structure, create accountability that actually means something. Defend your commitment against your own resistance day after day after day. It would be easier not to. Easier to just try harder with willpower and hope. Easier to wait for motivation to strike. Easier to keep doing what you've been doing. But you already know where easy leads. You've been there. It's where you are right now. This architecture, this scaffolding of structure and clarity and accountability is the difference between wanting to be disciplined and actually being disciplined. It's the difference between another false start and a genuine transformation. It's the difference between the person you've been and the person you're capable of becoming. The next chapter is about what to do when the architecture isn't enough, when you've built all the systems and you still want to quit. When discipline isn't the problem, something deeper is, because structure can hold you up, but it can't heal you. We're going deeper. Stay with me. Chapter 5. When discipline isn't enough. The architecture is holding, but you're breaking. You've done everything right. You've built the systems, you've created the structure, you've got accountability in place. You're showing up, doing the work, checking the boxes. On paper, you're disciplined, but something's wrong. You're going through the motions, but there's a hollowness to it. You're keeping the commitments, but it feels like dragging a boulder uphill every day with no relief. You're not quitting, but you're not thriving either. You're just enduring. Or maybe you're doing well for weeks, even months, and then suddenly you're sabotaging yourself in ways that make no logical sense. You're binge eating after months of clean eating. You're blowing money after weeks of careful saving. You're picking fights in relationships you've been working hard to improve. And you're confused, because if discipline was supposed to fix this, why isn't it fixed? Here's what most productivity books won't tell you. Sometimes lack of discipline isn't the problem, it's a symptom.
Sometimes you're undisciplined because discipline is actually the wrong solution to a different problem entirely. And all the systems and structure in the world won't help if you're trying to discipline your way out of something that requires a completely different kind of healing. This chapter is about what to do when discipline isn't enough, when the architecture is solid, but the foundation underneath is cracked. The discipline paradox. Here's the cruel irony. You can be disciplined enough to maintain behaviors while being completely disconnected from why you're doing them. You can force yourself to work out every day while hating your body more with each rep. You can build a successful business while destroying your mental health. You can maintain perfect eating habits while developing an eating disorder. You can be productive as hell while being profoundly depressed. Discipline without wisdom is just sophisticated self-destruction. The workout routine that you maintain through shame and self-hatred, that's not health, that's punishment with fitness equipment. The business you're grinding on to prove your worth, that's not entrepreneurship, that's trying to earn the right to exist. The perfect productivity system that keeps you busy 18 hours a day, that's not discipline, that's avoidance. And eventually, your psyche will rebel. It has to, because no amount of discipline can compensate for doing the right things for the wrong reasons. The 7 signs discipline isn't your real problem. Sign number 1. You're achieving but not satisfied. You hit your goals, you check the boxes, you do what you said you do, and yet nothing changes internally. You lost the weight but still hate what you see in the mirror. You built the business but still feel inadequate. You got the promotion but still feel like a fraud. You achieved the thing, but the achievement feels empty. What this means is you're disciplining yourself toward external markers of success while ignoring internal needs. You're trying to fix a feeling with an achievement, and it doesn't work because achievements don't heal emotional wounds. The discipline isn't the problem, the goal is. Sign number 2. You maintain discipline through negative motivation. Your discipline is powered by fear of being fat, not desire to be healthy. Shame about your current self, not vision for your future self. Trying to prove something to people who hurt you. Running from feelings instead of running toward dreams. Self-punishment disguised as self-improvement. What this means is you're using discipline as a weapon against yourself. And you can do that for a while. Fear and shame are powerful motivators. But eventually, you'll either burn out or develop a deeply unhealthy relationship with whatever you're being disciplined about. Discipline fueled by self-hatred always becomes toxic, even when it produces results. Sign number 3. You sabotage right before success. You're doing great. You're close to the goal. You're actually gonna make it this time. And then, suddenly, inexplicably, you blow it all up. You cheat on your diet the week before the wedding you've been preparing for. You stop going to the gym right when you start seeing real results. You ghost the business opportunity you've been working toward. You pick a fight with your partner right when things are getting really good. What this means is some part of you is terrified of success. Maybe success means you can't blame your problems on your circumstances anymore. Maybe it means people will expect more from you. Maybe it means you'll have to let go of a victim identity that's been protecting you. Your self-sabotage isn't lack of discipline. It's self-protection from something that feels more dangerous than failure, succeeding. Sign number 4. You're disciplined in one area, completely undisciplined in others. You're a machine at work, focused, productive, crushing it, but your personal health is a disaster. Or you're incredibly disciplined about fitness, but your finances are chaos. Or you keep your house immaculate, but your emotional life is a wreck. What this means is you're using discipline in one area to avoid dealing with problems in another. The area where you're disciplined gives you a sense of control and accomplishment that compensates for the area where you feel out of control. But compensation isn't healing. You're just allocating all your discipline to the area that feels safest while neglecting the area that actually needs attention. Sign number 5. Your discipline requires isolation. You can only maintain your discipline by cutting yourself off from other people. You avoid social events because they'll disrupt your routine. You can't have a normal meal with friends because it'll mess up your diet. You're so rigid with your schedule that relationships suffer. What this means is you're using discipline as a wall between yourself and human connection. Maybe connection feels dangerous. Maybe you've been hurt. Maybe intimacy requires vulnerability you're not ready for. So you build a fortress of discipline and call it dedication. But isolation wrapped in productivity is still isolation. Sign number 6. You can't rest without guilt. You're disciplined, but you can't turn it off. Taking a day off feels like failure. Resting feels like laziness. You can't enjoy leisure without the nagging feeling that you should be doing something productive. You've built discipline, but you've lost the ability to be human. You're a doing machine with no off switch. What this means is you've tied your worth to your productivity. You don't believe you deserve rest unless you've earned it through suffering. You're running from the terrifying possibility that you might be valuable just for existing, not for what you accomplish. This isn't discipline. This is workaholism with better branding. Sign number 7. You're maintaining behaviors that hurt you. You're disciplined about things that are actively harmful. You consistently overwork to the point of breakdown. You maintain relationships that drain you. You pursue goals that make you miserable. You show up for things that don't serve you. And you do it all very consistently, very reliably, very disciplined. What this means is you've confused discipline with obligation. You're loyally showing up for things that don't deserve your loyalty, because walking away would mean admitting you were wrong, disappointing someone, or facing the uncertainty of something new. Discipline that keeps you in a bad situation isn't discipline.
It's a cage you've built for yourself. The deeper work. If you recognized yourself in any of those signs, here's what you need to understand.
No amount of external discipline will fix an internal wound. You can structure your way around surface-level problems. You can build systems to compensate for lack of motivation. You can create accountability to overcome resistance. But you cannot system your way out of unhealed trauma, deep-seated shame, fundamental beliefs that you're not worthy, emotional needs you're trying to ignore, parts of yourself you're trying to escape. These require different work, harder work, work that can't be done with productivity apps and accountability partners. The 4 types of deeper work. Type 1, identity work. The problem, you're trying to discipline yourself into being someone you don't actually want to be. You're pursuing goals that aren't yours. They're what you think you should want, or what someone else wanted for you, or what looks impressive from the outside. You're building a life that looks successful but feels empty because it's not aligned with who you actually are. The work? Stop and ask yourself, if no one was watching, if I didn't have to prove anything to anyone, if I couldn't fail or be judged, what would I actually want? Not what sounds good, not what's practical, not what you think you should want. What do you actually want? This is terrifying because the answer might be completely different from the life you're building. It might mean admitting you've been climbing the wrong mountain. It might mean disappointing people. It might mean starting over. But discipline toward the wrong goal is just wasted effort with really good time management. The exercise, write 2 lists. List 1, everything I'm being disciplined about. List 2, everything that makes me feel alive, even if it's impractical or doesn't fit my current life. Now look at the overlap. If there's very little overlap, you've discovered why discipline feels like dragging a boulder. You're disciplining yourself away from who you actually are. Type 2, emotional processing work. The problem, you're using discipline to avoid feeling things you need to feel. You stay busy so you don't have to sit with loneliness. You maintain rigid routines so you don't have to face anxiety. You work yourself to exhaustion so you don't have to deal with grief, anger, or fear. You're running, and discipline is your method. The work, stop running. Sit still. Feel the things you've been avoiding. This sounds simple. It's not. It's possibly the hardest thing you'll ever do, because those feelings are huge and terrifying, and you've been avoiding them for good reasons. But here's the truth. Unfelt feelings don't go away. They just run your life from the shadows. They leak out as inexplicable self-sabotage. They manifest as physical symptoms. They drive compulsions and addictions and relationship patterns, and no amount of discipline can suppress them forever. The exercise, set aside 20 minutes where you're completely alone. No phone, no distractions, no agenda. Sit with one question. What am I avoiding feeling? Don't answer it intellectually. Feel into it. Notice what emotions arise. Let them be there without fixing, solving, or distracting. This might be all you can handle at first. That's okay. This is the beginning of learning to be with yourself instead of constantly running from yourself. Type 3, belief work. The problem, your discipline is built on a foundation of beliefs that are fundamentally broken. I have to earn the right to exist through achievement. My worth is determined by my productivity. Rest is laziness. I don't deserve good things unless I suffer for them. If I'm not perfect, I'm worthless. These beliefs will poison any discipline you build, because discipline built on these foundations will always become self-punishment. The work, identify the belief, examine where it came from, question whether it's actually true. Replace it with something that doesn't require you to hate yourself into improvement. This isn't positive thinking, this is excavating the actual operating system your brain is running on and debugging the corrupted code. The exercise, complete these sentences honestly. I have to be disciplined because if I'm not,
When I fail at being disciplined, it means I can only rest, relax, or enjoy myself after the reason I need to change is because. Now look at those answers. Are they motivating or shaming? Are they about becoming someone better or escaping someone you hate? Are they about growth or punishment? If your answers are rooted in shame, fear, and self-hatred, you need to rebuild your belief system before you build more discipline. Otherwise, you're just getting more efficient at being cruel to yourself. Type 4. Integration work. The problem, you're trying to discipline away parts of yourself instead of integrating them. You're trying to kill the part of you that wants to rest, eliminate the part that craves pleasure, suppress the part that's messy, impulsive, playful, or doesn't fit your productivity-optimized ideal. You're at war with yourself, and discipline is your weapon. The work, understand that all parts of you exist for a reason. The part that wants to scroll mindlessly for hours, it's trying to help you decompress from overwhelming stress. The part that sabotages your diet, it might be trying to give you comfort or control in an area where you feel powerless. These parts aren't enemies to be defeated. They're messengers telling you about unmet needs. The exercise, think about a behavior you're trying to discipline away. Now ask, what need is this behavior trying to meet? Not what's wrong with the behavior, not why it's bad, what need is it serving? And then ask, how else could I meet that need in a way that actually serves me? This is integration, not suppression, not elimination. Finding ways to honor your needs that don't require self-destructive behaviors.
When to get professional help. Here's what I can't do from the pages of this book: give you therapy. If you're reading this chapter and recognizing patterns of trauma that discipline is masking but not healing, depression or anxiety that productivity can't fix, eating disorders disguised as clean eating or discipline, compulsive behaviors that feel like discipline but are actually forms of self-harm, deep shame that no amount of achievement will resolve, you need more than this book. You need a therapist. There's no shame in that. In fact, getting help is one of the most disciplined choices you can make, because it means you're willing to do the hard work of actually healing instead of just managing symptoms through productivity. Discipline can help you show up to therapy consistently. It can help you do the exercises your therapist recommends. It can help you build healthier patterns. But it can't replace the therapeutic process of working through deep psychological issues with someone trained to help you do that. If discipline is making your life objectively better, but you still feel terrible, that's not a discipline problem. That's a mental health issue that deserves professional support. The balanced approach. Here's what sustainable, healthy discipline actually looks like. It's in service of becoming more yourself, not less. It's powered by desire and vision, not fear and shame. It includes rest, pleasure, spontaneity, and mess. It makes room for human needs, not just productive outputs. It can be adjusted when circumstances change, without feeling like failure. Healthy discipline asks, what do I need to do to build the life I actually want? Unhealthy discipline asks, what do I need to do to be acceptable, worthy, enough? The first is sustainable. The second will eventually break you. The integration plan. If you've realized that discipline alone isn't solving your problem, here's your path forward. Step 1. Maintain your current discipline. Don't abandon the systems and structures you've built. They're still valuable. They're just not complete. Step 2. Add the deeper work. Choose one type of deeper work from this chapter that resonates most. Start there. Give it as much attention as you give your discipline practices. Step 3. Get support. Whether that's a therapist, a support group, a mentor, or trusted friends who can help you with the emotional and psychological work, don't try to do this alone. Step 4. Reevaluate your goals.
As you do the deeper work, you might discover that some of your goals need to change. That's okay. Better to pursue goals that actually align with who you are than to discipline yourself toward goals that will leave you empty even when achieved. Step 5, practice self-compassion. The discipline you've learned needs to be balanced with kindness toward yourself. You're not a machine to be optimized. You're a human being learning to live well. The hard truth about wholeness. You cannot productivity hack your way to mental health. You cannot discipline your way out of depression. You cannot structure your way through trauma. You cannot system build your way to self-love. These require different work, softer work, slower work, work that can't be measured in spreadsheets or tracked in apps. And here's what makes this chapter so challenging. Doing this deeper work might actually make you less disciplined for a while. When you start feeling emotions you've been suppressing, you might need more rest. When you're processing trauma, you might have less energy for your usual routines. When you're rebuilding your belief system, you might need to let go of some of the rigid structures that were actually holding you back. That's okay. That's not failure. That's healing. The point isn't to be perfectly disciplined every moment of your life. The point is to build a life that's worth living. And sometimes that requires stepping back from discipline to do the deeper work that discipline can't touch.
The next chapter returns to practical application, but now with the wisdom of this chapter integrated. We're going to talk about what to do when you fail, when you break the chain, when you fall off the wagon and have to decide whether to give up or get back up. Because failure is inevitable, the question is what you do with it. And that's where discipline truly proves itself, not in the perfect streak, but in the comeback. Chapter 6, The Comeback. You're going to fail. Let me save you some suspense. You're going to break your commitment. Not maybe, not possibly. You will. You'll miss a workout, skip a writing session, break your diet, blow your budget, sleep through your alarm, lose your streak, fall off the wagon in spectacular or mundane fashion. And when that happens, when, not if, everything we've built in this book will be tested by a single question. What do you do next? Because here's the truth that separates people who become disciplined from people who just have occasional bursts of discipline. Disciplined people aren't people who never fail. They're people who fail and come back anyway. The comeback is everything. It's more important than the initial commitment, more important than the perfect streak, more important than any single day of showing up. Because the comeback is where you prove whether this was real or just another false start, whether you're building a new identity or just trying on a costume, whether discipline is something you are or something you temporarily did. This chapter is about how to come back, every single time, no matter what. The failure spiral. Here's what typically happens. Day 1 through 30, you're doing great. The systems are working. You're keeping the commitment. You're starting to see results. You're feeling good. Day 31, something happens. You're sick or stressed or traveling or just human. You miss the commitment. Day 32, this is the pivot point, and here's where most people go into the spiral. The thought, I already broke the streak, the damage is done. The feeling, disappointment, shame, the sense that you've proven you're not actually the kind of person who can do this. The action, miss another day. Because if you've already failed, what's one more day? The perfect record is already broken. Might as well wait until Monday, next month, next year to start fresh. The pattern, by day 40, you're completely off the wagon. By day 60, you've forgotten you ever tried. By day 90, you're back exactly where you started with an extra layer of cynicism about your ability to change. This is how good intentions die. Not in a single failure, but in what you do after the failure. The one-day rule. Here's the rule that changes everything. You're allowed to miss one day. You're never allowed to miss 2 in a row. One missed day is life. It's human. It's forgivable and recoverable. 2 missed days in a row is a pattern. It's the beginning of the slide back to old habits. It's the point where you're no longer trying to maintain the commitment, you're negotiating it away. The difference between disciplined and undisciplined isn't perfection. It's whether you miss once or twice.
The disciplined person misses Monday and shows up Tuesday, even though it's hard, even though the streak is broken, even though they feel like a failure. The undisciplined person misses Monday, then Tuesday, then I'll restart next week, then next week becomes next month, then this wasn't the right time anyway. One person failed and came back. The other person failed and quit. That's the only difference that matters. The day after protocol. The day after you miss your commitment is the most important day of your entire discipline journey. What you do on this day determines whether you're building sustainable discipline or having another temporary burst. Here's exactly what to do. 1. Name what happened without drama. I missed my workout yesterday. Not, I'm such a failure. Not, I have no discipline. Just the facts. 2. Identify the actual reason. Was it truly unavoidable? Genuine illness? Emergency? Or was it avoidable? Tired, didn't feel like it, scheduling conflict you could have worked around. Be honest. Brutal honesty is the only currency that works here. 3. Adjust if necessary. If you missed because the commitment was genuinely unsustainable, you committed to 5 a.m. workouts but you're a parent of a newborn who doesn't sleep, adjust the commitment to something realistic. But if you missed because of normal human resistance, don't adjust. That's your ego trying to negotiate easier terms. 4. Do it today, no matter what. Not a makeup session, not a better version to compensate, just the regular commitment, same as always. Even if it's terrible, even if you don't want to, even if it feels pointless because the streak is broken, especially then. Because you're not doing it to maintain a streak, you're doing it to prove to yourself that one failure doesn't define you. The perfection trap. Most people fail to come back because they're still chasing perfection. They think, well, I already broke the perfect record, there's no point now. I'll just wait until I can start fresh and do it perfectly. This is your brain lying to you. Perfection was never the goal. Consistency was. A year with 300 days of showing up and 65 days of missing it is infinitely better than 30 perfect days followed by quitting. A broken streak that you continue anyway is worth more than an unbroken streak you're terrified to break. The streak is not the point. The identity is. Are you someone who does this thing even imperfectly? Or are you someone who only does it when conditions are perfect? One of those people will still be doing it in 5 years. The other won't. The shame spiral versus the learning loop. When you fail, you have 2 options for how to process it. The shame spiral, what most people do, failure to I'm terrible, to shame, to avoidance, to more failure, to see, I knew I couldn't do it, to giving up. This is a death spiral. Once you're in it, every failure reinforces the belief that you're fundamentally inadequate. Eventually, you stop trying because trying just means proving yourself right about your inadequacy. The learning loop, what disciplined people do, failure to what happened, to analysis, to adjustment, to try again, to failure or success, to what can I learn, to repeat. This is a growth spiral. Every failure is data. Every mistake is information about what doesn't work. You're not proving you're inadequate. You're refining your approach. The difference isn't in the failure. It's in what the failure means. To the person in the shame spiral, failure means I'm broken. To the person in the learning loop, failure means that approach didn't work. Let's try something different. One is an identity statement. The other is a process observation. One destroys. The other builds.
The types of failure and how to handle each. Not all failures are the same. Different types require different responses. Type 1. The legitimately unavoidable. You got the flu and were genuinely too sick to work out. Your child had an emergency. You were in a car accident. Life happened in a way that made your commitment genuinely impossible. Response. Forgive yourself immediately. This wasn't a failure of discipline. It was reality. Come back as soon as you genuinely can, without guilt. Warning. Be honest about what's legitimately unavoidable. Too tired is not the same as sick with the flu.
Don't feel like it is not the same as family emergency. Type 2. The predictable obstacle. You traveled and didn't plan ahead. You had a busy week and didn't protect your time. You knew something was coming and didn't adjust your approach. Response: this is a planning failure, not a discipline failure. Come back immediately, but also learn the lesson. What could you have planned for? How can you handle this obstacle next time? Your discipline system needs to be robust enough to handle normal life disruptions. If it isn't, fix the system, not just your motivation. Type 3. The resistance failure. Nothing was actually stopping you. You just didn't want to, so you didn't. Response: this is the real test. Come back immediately and do it especially well. Not as punishment, but as proof that yesterday's resistance doesn't get to dictate today's actions. This is where you're literally retraining your brain. The feeling of not wanting to do it does not mean we don't do it. Type 4. The burnout failure. You've been going hard for weeks or months. You're exhausted. You finally just stopped because you're running on empty. Response: you need rest, not more discipline. Take one day to genuinely rest, not scroll on your phone for 8 hours, but actually rest. Sleep, eat well, do something that fills you up. Then come back, but also examine whether your commitment is sustainable. Discipline that requires burnout to maintain isn't discipline, it's a slow-motion breakdown. Type 5. The self-sabotage failure. Everything was going great, too great, so you blew it up, for no logical reason. Response: this is the failure we talked about in Chapter 5. There's something deeper happening. Come back to the commitment, but also start the deeper work. What are you afraid of? What is success threatening? What would succeeding mean about you or your life? You can discipline yourself back to the behavior, but without addressing the underlying fear, you'll just sabotage again. The comeback hierarchy. When you've failed, especially if you've been off the wagon for more than a few days, the question becomes, how do you come back? Here's the hierarchy from strongest to weakest comeback. Level 1. The immediate comeback. You missed yesterday, you show up today. No excuses, no delay, no starting fresh Monday. Today. This is the gold standard. Level 2. The modified comeback. You missed a few days. Coming back to the full commitment feels overwhelming, so you come back to a modified version, half the time, lighter intensity, whatever you can actually do today. Example: your commitment is 45 minutes at the gym. You haven't gone in a week. You go today for 20 minutes. Not perfect, but you showed up. Critical: the modified comeback is temporary. Within a week, you're back to the full commitment. This isn't negotiating easier terms. It's removing the friction of getting restarted. Level 3. The scheduled comeback. You can't come back today. Legitimately, you're traveling, you're actually sick, etc. You schedule the specific day and time you're coming back, and you protect it like a doctor's appointment. Then you actually do it. No rescheduling, no "I'll see how I feel." Level 4. The fresh start. You've been off for weeks or months. The previous commitment feels like a different lifetime. You need to start over. Fine, start over, but start now, not next Monday, and use everything you learned from the previous attempt. Why did you quit? What needs to be different? What system failed? The weakest comeback is, "I'll get back to it when." This is not a comeback. This is quitting while maintaining the illusion of intention. The anti-motivation comeback. Here's what will not get you back on track. Motivational videos, inspirational quotes, visualizing your future self, waiting until you feel ready, getting a fresh planner or app or tool, making elaborate plans for how great it'll be when you restart. All of that is procrastination disguised as preparation. You know what actually gets you back on track? Doing the thing, right now, before you're ready, before you feel like it, before you've psyched yourself up. The comeback doesn't require motivation. It requires one decision. I'm doing this now. Then doing it. Everything else is noise. The multiple failure comeback. What if you failed multiple times? What if this isn't your first comeback, it's your 10th? What if you started and stopped so many times that the whole thing feels futile? Here's what you need to hear. The number of previous failures is completely irrelevant to whether you can succeed this time. 0 previous attempts, you still have to show up today. 10 previous attempts, you still have to show up today. 50 previous attempts, you still have to show up today. The past doesn't determine the future unless you let it, and every comeback that failed teaches you something about what doesn't work, which means you're closer to finding what does. But, and this is important, if you keep failing at the exact same point in the exact same way, you need to change your approach.
If you consistently quit after 3 weeks, there's something about week 3 that your system isn't handling. Figure out what it is and address it before you restart. If you consistently self-sabotage right before success, you need to do the deeper work from Chapter 5 before you rebuild the discipline. Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Smart comebacks involve learning from previous failures and adjusting accordingly. The public failure, public comeback. Remember when you told people about your commitment, when you made it public? Now you've failed publicly, and that feels humiliating. Your ego is screaming, "Don't come back! Everyone saw you fail! They'll know you're a failure! Just quietly disappear and never mention it again." Do the opposite. Come back publicly. Announce the comeback the same way you announced the commitment. I committed to X. I failed. I'm starting again today. Why this works? It removes the shame. Shame grows in darkness. Exposing the failure to light kills its power. It reactivates accountability. The people who knew you were doing this will check in again. You've re-engaged the support system. It proves something to yourself. If you can fail publicly and come back anyway, you're no longer controlled by the fear of judgment. The people who matter will respect the comeback more than they judged the failure. The forever comeback. Here's the ultimate truth about discipline. It's a series of comebacks, forever. You will never reach a point where you're done with having to come back, where discipline is so automatic that you never miss, where you've conquered yourself completely and there's no more resistance. That point doesn't exist. Disciplined people aren't people who never fail. They're people who have mastered the comeback. They've practiced it so many times that the gap between failure and return gets shorter and shorter. From weeks to days to hours to, I missed this morning's workout and I'll do it this afternoon. The comeback becomes automatic. Failure stops being catastrophic because you know, really know in your bones that you'll just come back. And that's when discipline becomes unbreakable. Not when you never fail, but when failure can't stop you. The Comeback Toolkit. Here's your practical toolkit when you need to come back. Tool 1, the 5-minute rule. Can't face the full commitment? Do 5 minutes, just 5. Set a timer. When it goes off, you can stop if you want. 99% of the time, once you start, you'll keep going. But even if you don't, 5 minutes is a comeback. It's proof you showed up. Tool 2, the accountability text. Text your accountability person, I missed X. I'm doing it today at this specific time. Now you've created external pressure. And when you do it, text them again. Done. Tool 3, the pre-comeback prep. The night before you come back, set everything up. Lay out clothes, prepare food, open the document, remove all friction. You're not relying on morning willpower. You're engineering an environment that makes the comeback inevitable. Tool 4, the comeback mantra.
Have a specific phrase you say to yourself when coming back from failure. I'm not defined by one day. I'm someone who comes back. This is where discipline is proven. Something short, true, and powerful. Say it out loud. Mean it. Tool 5. The Evidence Journal. Keep a record of every comeback. Every time you fail and return anyway, write it down with the date. Over time, this becomes evidence that you are someone who comes back, that this isn't just talk, it's your actual pattern. When you're in the middle of the struggle, you can look back and see, I've done this before. I can do it again. The long game. Let me give you a perspective shift. A year from now, you will not remember most of the individual days you showed up. They'll blend together. What was January 17th's workout? Who knows? It happened, it was fine, it's done. But you will remember every comeback. You'll remember the day you didn't want to do it, felt like quitting, and did it anyway. The day you'd been off for a week and came back. The morning you woke up already defeated and chose to fight anyway. Those days that build you. Those are the moments where discipline becomes identity. The perfect days are maintenance. The comeback days are transformation. So when you fail, and you will, know this. You're about to have an opportunity that perfect success never provides. The opportunity to prove that you're stronger than your resistance, bigger than your failures, and more committed to growth than to comfort. The comeback is where heroes are made. Your next move. You're at the end of this book, and here's what happens next. You're going to feel inspired, motivated, ready to change. You're going to make a commitment, build some systems, start strong. And then, at some point, you're going to fail. When that happens, come back to this chapter. Read it again. Not the whole book, just this chapter. Then close the book and do the thing you committed to. Right then, no delay. Because the book doesn't change your life, the comeback does. The final truth. I've told you a lot of hard truths in this book. I've told you you're undisciplined, that your excuses are lying to you, that you're afraid, that structure matters more than motivation, that sometimes discipline isn't enough. But here's the hardest, most important truth of all.
You can do this. Not perfectly, not without failure, not without struggle, but you can do this. You can build discipline. You can keep commitments. You can become someone who does what they say they'll do. You can close the gap between who you are and who you want to be. Not because you're special, because you're willing to come back. Every single time you fail, you get to choose. Stay down or get up. Stay down is comfortable. It's familiar. It's where you've been living. No one can blame you for staying down. Life is hard. Discipline is hard. You tried. But get up is where your life changes. Get up is where you discover you're stronger than you thought, more resilient than you knew, more capable than you believed. Get up is where you become someone who keeps promises to yourself and others, someone who faces resistance and does it anyway, someone who fails and fights back. Get up is where you become disciplined, not through perfection, through the comeback, again and again and again. The last question. This book is over. The reading is done. Now you have one question to answer. Are you going to do the work? Not think about it, not plan to start later, not wait for the right time or the perfect system or until you feel ready. Are you going to close this book, identify the one commitment that matters most, build the structure around it, face your fears, accept that you'll fail, and commit to coming back anyway? Are you going to actually do it? Because if the answer is no, if you're going to put this book down and change nothing, then I've wasted your time and you've wasted mine.
But if the answer is yes, if you're ready to stop making excuses and start making changes, if you're willing to be uncomfortable, imperfect, and disciplined anyway, if you're committed to the comeback no matter how many times it takes, then you're about to discover something remarkable. You were never broken. You were never hopeless. You were never incapable. You were just undisciplined. And that you can fix, starting now. 6 months from now. 6 months from now, one of two things will be true. Option 1, you'll be reading this book again, looking for the magic bullet you missed, wondering why it didn't work this time either, making the same excuses, living the same life. Option 2, you'll be a different person, not perfect, not finished, but fundamentally changed. Someone who does what they say they'll do. Someone who keeps commitments. Someone who fails and comes back. Someone who's built real, sustainable discipline into their actual life. The difference between these two futures isn't talent, circumstances, or luck. It's what you do in the next 5 minutes. Right now, before the motivation fades, before the excuses resurface, before you convince yourself to wait. What's the one commitment? What's the structure? Who's the accountability? When do you start? Answer those questions, write them down, tell someone, then do it. Not tomorrow, today. And when you fail, because you will, come back again and again and again. That's it. That's the whole secret. That's the entire book. It's not working because you're undisciplined. Now go prove you're not anymore. The end. But really, the beginning.